Hey guys. So if my headphones are muted somehow. Oh, what the heck? Okay, here we go. Hopefully you can hear me now. Catherine is watching. Hopefully I can invite her. So what? And it says invite. Oh, no, cancel. I'm not inviting Terry. I'm inviting Catherine. So there we problem. We were on a little bit ago, and so I called Catherine, and she was on her computer, and so because of that, it wasn't working. And so I said, get on your phone. And so I guess that's it. You have to be on your phone in order to be able to do it. So that is why. So if you're going to do a Facebook Live, you have to be on your phone to do it. So I'm waiting for Catherine. Hopefully she's just getting the accepting part where she can do it. Who else is here? Let me see who else is here. Hi, Kyle. And there's Catherine. Hello, Miss Catherine.
Hey.
We got this going, right? Huh?
Thank you for bringing me into the 21st century.
You're so welcome. I was like, well, I guess because I had the phone, I was like, well, I guess I could like hold the phone up and be like, we're on conference call via video, like going really back. Oh
right.
My gosh, very good. We have some great people on. Hey, Terry, thanks for being here. My friend Julie,
Terry.
my friend Julie, who's in Italy, is on. She's watching us. Yes, you can ask me a question. Please ask us questions during the broadcast. So this is Katherine Bacon, Dr. Katherine Bacon. I don't want to forget all that financial investment and wisdom that you have for that PhD. So
it doesn't make me any smarter than anybody else. Just maybe not as wise financially.
No. So Katherine Bacon is our board liaison for Texas Counseling Association to the LPC board. As TCA president, I get to ask somebody to serve every year as a liaison. Catherine has been our liaison for 2 years now. Yes?
Yes, 2 full years. I did a year of training, so it's, I think that counts too, because
I was going to say
Kim Hatley really helped me, but man, I was there with her the whole way, learning and trying, and but I appreciate her forcing me to stand up and do public comment, even though I was really nervous.
Hey, you know what? When I was there, I was like, dang, she's good making those public comments. Yeah, it's a lot of work. So the board meets, I don't know, like 3 or 4 times a year. I know the complaints committee meets often, right. Kind of. I think they meet a little bit more often. But that was 4 very full days, 3 very full days. I can't remember how much it was, but it was long. So Catherine is our liaison. What she does is she goes to all of the board meetings and represents the voice of Texas Counseling Association. So, whoop, whoop. We also have liaisons for the LMFT board, and there's a school counseling one too. We have several liaisons for the suicide council. I think there's a liaison. So we always have somebody there to be the voice of TCA and kind of say, hey, this is what we're thinking. These are the problems that we're having. We really appreciate what's going on here. And what I think is really cool is they really want to hear from us.
They do.
Tell us about some of the experience that you have had as far as them wanting input, because I was at that meeting and they said, Dr. Bacon, what's your thoughts here? Which I thought,
right. Yeah, I have to tell you, I had attended LPC board committee and full board meetings in the past as a member of the profession. That's just a great way to engage. It's a great way to advocate. It's a great way to know what's going on in the profession. So I had done that when my schedule allowed as a professional counselor before taking on this role and going through the training for this role. And when you're not there all the time, what you miss is that the board really does want to hear from you. And we have had, new board members come on that have really taken that as a charge to protect the public, which is what they're charged to do by the governor, but to also hear from all the stakeholders. And I see that by going there all the time, I just see that consistently. And so some committees, you kind of need to wait until public comment is scheduled on the agenda to chime in. But particularly the Rules Committee, chaired by Steve Christofferson, that committee in particular really asks for engagement all through the entire meeting, which is phenomenal considering that committee has a lot of weight to it. That's the committee that determines how the Texas Administrative Code is going to be written. And it's just really great that they allow us to engage throughout the whole discussion versus making us wait until the end of the discussion to just kind of chime in for public comment. It speaks to the
very
relationship
collaborative.
we've been able to develop. Yes, exactly.
Yes. Yeah, I was surprised how collaborative they were in the Rules Committee, and that they were just right there saying, what do y'all think? Obviously, they were making the decisions as a committee, but it was still pretty dang collaborative the way it was. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yes, very much so. We are frozen on some part. Oh, no, we're not. I have my computer over here in case somebody's asking questions.
Okay.
Give us an update, like your update based upon the meetings last time. What would you say some of the updates that people would want to know about the board?
Sure. One of the big updates I would say is that due to just constraints at the state level regarding staffing and resources, they're highly considering, like, the decision is basically made. They just haven't figured out yet how that'll happen. But they're going to discontinue having continuing ed providers, which is a really big deal. And it's not because they don't see the value in it. They do see the value. The issue is just lack of staff and resources to regulate that. What they also at the same time recognize is that we do need to get continuing ed, that's important. It helps protect the public. It helps keep counselors current and help us with best practice. The challenge will be, so now you thought I was old school. That is truly old school, calling in on a phone.
Well, I'm at my office, and I brought this in to call you, and I thought, oh, I didn't need that in here. Yes.
So the fact that they just don't have the staff or resources to really regulate, continuing ed providers, as much as that's a really important thing, the fact that they can't support that speaks to why, we should advocate, why we should be engaged as citizens and as members of the profession and members of the public, because they should have the staff and they should have the resources to regulate continuing ed providers in the state. But they're going to have to figure out how to do that without having that ability, because we'll all still need to get continuing ed. And so I would say that's a big thing for counselors and for those who are trainers of counselors to keep in mind that once they figure out how they're going to do that, we need to be mindful of what that will look like. They just don't know. Will there won't be continuing ed provider numbers anymore that you'll see on a continuing ed certificate, but yet you'll still have to get continuing ed. So these are opportunities when change is in the mix for us to engage, for us to share our thoughts and ideas, those who get continuing ed and those who provide continuing ed, to maybe shape what that change looks like.
Yeah, because honestly, as you're talking, as I'm sitting here thinking and trying to manage comments, I'm sitting here thinking, I wonder how is that as a consumer of the continuing ed? I'm concerned about what's the quality of the continuing ed I'm going to get.
Hopefully you are concerned. Right.
And I'm also concerned, as the profession, is if the quality is going down, I mean, all we have is our own reputation. And so as a community, if somebody's putting out poor continuing education units, then how is that going to impact the quality of our profession? That's really interesting.
Right.
And I like the way that you framed it, that we have an opportunity to shape that. And that's probably some good feedback that people need to, people need to think about what kind of feedback they want to give, and then maybe even contact you or TCA, and maybe we could put it that way, or put their own comments out there. Because I know, like right now.
Yeah.
Oh, attend the meetings. Yeah.
The great thing about this work is that I don't need special permission to be there. And neither does anybody else. These are open public meetings, and anyone can show up, and certainly be respectful of everyone there, but take advantage of that opportunity. So that's a big thing that stood out to me from the meetings a few weeks ago. Yep. The other big thing that stood out is the board is really trying to figure out how they can, again, manage the issue of not having enough staff and not having enough resources. How can they manage that and still provide the protection to the public that they're charged to do, and also help the profession move forward so that it can provide the services to the public needs? And one of those big areas, of course, those of you that are in the profession are aware that it takes a long time to get paperwork processed. For new graduates, it takes a long time to get their initial first LPC intern license issued, which means then sometimes they have to wait to take a job. They are delayed in starting their 3,000 postgraduate hours. It's challenging, and once you finish those 3,000 hours, which is several years sometimes,
right,
commitment
and expensive sometimes.
Exactly, not to mention the expense involved in that. Then it takes several more months after that for the board, not the board, but the staff. To process. Exactly.
And how many staff are there?
One.
So
we have one full-time dedicated staff. We have another staff that we share with other, boards. But as far as our own dedicated team, we just have one.
Yeah.
And she works hard. She works super hard.
Which is like insane in the membrane. That's what I'm saying right now.
Considering we have, like an estimated, 27,000, I think, if you combine LPCs and LPC interns together, I think, in the state of Texas. We're the largest mental health provider in Texas. And,
there's a bottleneck. That's really what it is. And one of the complaints, the biggest complaint that we hear is that, and I have it too. I have LPC interns that waited 3 or 4 months for their paperwork to be processed. I have that they're fully licensed now. And then I have an intern myself that we waited several months just for him to get his supervisor switched over to me. And it seems crazy. And while I can have empathy for them, it's still frustrating. And complaining to them doesn't help. What we need to do
they also are frustrated.
They want staff.
Yes, the staff want help, and the board wants staff. And I think if there's one thing that I could, I wish I could clarify for everyone watching, and that is that we use the term the board loosely, but I want to make sure everyone understands that the board are just volunteers who are appointed by the governor. They are public members who are not counselors. They are also counselors who are practicing. It's a blend, but they're volunteers, and they cannot do the work. They can only oversee the process and guide the process. But it's actually the staff employed by the state that actually execute the work. And so there is a difference. And the board, because they're volunteers, can only, try to push for the state to do things as much as they can push. Again, their power and influence are limited to the scope of what legally they can do. And, but they can't make the state hire people. As
Right.
much as they wish they could, they just can't.
Arm wrestle them.
I'm pretty strong, man.
Well,
I don't know if I'm that strong.
This will be the last thing I kind of say about it. One of the things that I found really interesting is that out of all the fees that we pay in, I think I heard like only a quarter of it goes
Right.
to fund the staff that support us. And I'm sure it gets dispersed, but I guess it goes into the general coffer. I have no idea where that money goes, but I think that's one of the things we as an organization, TCA, are pretty vocal about. And so if you want to make an impact or change regarding this, if you think that more of those funds need to go to fund the staff that are actually going to impact us as mental health providers and allow us to open up that funnel, then we need to be calling our legislators. We need to be calling them to make a change in that budget. That's what I know to do. It doesn't help to complain. I'm editing language, to complain to the LPC
board or
office.
Staff. Yeah, exactly. Right.
People call all the time. They were talking about the number of phone calls they get in a day. And the thing is that sadly, what's happening is the phone has to be answered and then they don't have time to process. So, I mean, it's just a really bad situation. But one thing
there's a lot of challenges, and the board is really trying to figure out what can they do within the scope of their power and influence to help. Some of the things that they did at the last meeting were to make policy change. That's something that they can do. They have a lawyer as well who is employed by the state but is assigned to their board. So the lawyer provides legal consultation, for any idea that the board is bantering around to see if they can do something or not. And so one of the things that they were able to do was make some policy changes that allows them to create change immediately while they wait for the rules process to go through.
Yes.
So some of the things they did were they made a policy that allowed that one staff with the state to waive the tenure requirement for your counseling degree. Currently in the rules it says that your degree can't be more than 10 years old, your degree or your coursework. That was creating a backlog because then those people would come to the board and appeal that decision. Versus now with the policy change, the staff can just move that person through the process versus that person waiting to get a date to meet in front of the board for a hearing and say, so those kinds of things can help.
So what I was really surprised about really quickly, so I won't say his name, but somebody that we know that works at a university that has been on our TCA board for years is a university professor, a university counseling professor, but he doesn't have his LPC. And he was saying, hey, did I hear that right, that they waived the 10-year requirement? And I called me, and that was bad. I don't know if y'all could see me. Somebody called and I was like, stop, I'm live. Can y'all hear me now? Can you hear me now? Am I back on? Okay. So I was surprised that he said, I don't have my license. And I was like, really? And his degree is like from 1984. And he said, the whole reason why I wasn't applying to get my license is because I knew I would have to deal with the 10 rule thing. And it's just unfathomable. Like he's teaching our counselors, of course, that he's qualified to be an LPC, or you would think so, right?
Right,
anyway,
exactly. When the board was debating this issue, one of the things that came up was the lawyer for the board acknowledging that within the discipline of law, their degrees don't expire. And, he had shared, he's like, I wish you would come to me and tell me that my law degree has expired after 10 years. I wish you would. If I can pass the bar exam in the state, I deserve to be able, I'm demonstrated competent and deserve to be able to practice law.
Right.
And so, it speaks to kind of how we compare what we do compared to other disciplines. And so that was a policy change that they made. And they also made another policy change to help with the backlog of allowing the conversion from quarter semester hours. So those who attend a institution who are not on like a semester credit hour system, they're on a quarter credit hour system. When the staff would do the math to convert that to 3 credit hours, the math came out to be 2.66. And currently in the administrative code, it says you have to have 3 credit hours. It says the number. And so what that meant was the staff couldn't do anything with that person, and that person would have to come before the board. And, you know, so it just, again, created backlog versus now they can just push them through.
Yeah. And they're going by the rule. Like they can't make those,
and that's what they're supposed to do.
Decisions.
Exactly.
Right. So, by the way, Terry says, we have a great board. So I can see the comments on my phone. So thank you.
Oh, good.
I just turned off the computer one. I couldn't see that one. Let me think. Do you want Sunset Commission? We had a whole, the board was under Sunset. Was it last year?
And they're under Sunset again. Yes.
Again?
And today is
the deadline. Do you want to you go.
Yes, today is the deadline. If you have not, it is serendipitous, Cyndi, that we had to reschedule this for today. I know we were hoping to do it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right. It is serendipitous that we are rescheduled it for today. So for those of you who are watching, those who will watch the recording of this later, please, you don't have to be a counselor to submit public comment. You just have to be someone who cares about mental health. Please comment. Today is the deadline. You can go to the LPC board's homepage. There's a information about Sunset. There's information with the deadline, big and bold, and a link to get routed to the website to submit those comments. Depending on how lengthy your comments are, you can, spend 30 minutes doing it, or you can just spend 5 if that's what you want to do.
Or bullet points.
Yes, please submit comments. Today's the deadline.
That would be great. I'm trying to think what else. I was hoping that maybe people would ask questions and say hey, what about this process or something else. Is there anything else that as an LPC board liaison that you would want our members to know, or I guess even the public if they're watching this?
Well, I've already shared that you can attend. That it's open meeting, and so that would be the big one. I want to make sure everyone understands you can attend. It is free. You don't have to RSVP in advance. I see Terry has a question. Katherine, will you share with people what they should really pay close attention to? Well, Terry, that's so loaded. My gosh. They should pay close attention to everything.
I think she means maybe in regard to the sunset. I don't know. Is that what you mean, Terry? See if she writes back.
You're a good mind reader. We'll go with that, Cyndi. So
okay.
So on the in regards to what to pay close attention to on the Sunset and Commission stuff, you go to their website. They'll provide you some guidance. Yes, Sunset. Okay. They'll provide you some guidance on sort of that process. So pay attention to deadlines. Pay attention to the deadline today to submit comments. Then pay attention to when they issue their report. Pay attention to prior to them issuing their report, particularly if you submit public comment, there's a question that asks you if you would be willing to be interviewed. If you are interested in being interviewed, say yes. It doesn't have to be in person. They can find, phone calls and other things. So if you're interested in being interviewed, because maybe you don't have that 30 minutes today to put detailed comments in there, you just have a few minutes today, but you mark, yes, I want to be interviewed. Then maybe you schedule that interview for a time when you do have time to really share your thoughts. And again, you don't have to be a professional counselor to have an, input in this process. They want to hear from those of us from the public who either have, participated in counseling services, have a loved one who has, we're invested. We just care about people being able to get access to health care. By all means, please participate. So once they do their review of public comment and their interviewing, they'll also be going to LPC board meetings. They were at the last one.
Yes.
So they were there.
In the peanut gallery. Yes.
In the back of the room, but they were there. And so if you go to any of those meetings, you might see them there. And they may randomly stop you. Sometimes the board will take, breaks, restroom breaks and breaks in between meetings and stuff, lunch breaks. They might stop you as you walk out the room and say, hey, I'm such and such from the Sunset Review. Would you be interested in talking to me briefly about what you saw here today? If you feel comfortable, you can do that. That's a way to engage. And the other thing to keep an eye out for and pay attention to is the report. That's the big thing that will happen is the report. They may hold hearings before they issue that report where they are just gathering, they're investigating, they're gathering information. But when that report comes out, that report is done by people employed by the state. A lot of them have like law or criminal justice or policy, public policy backgrounds. And so their purpose is to put out a report that speaks to, how functional or how not functional the LPC board is and in executing their charge. And then also to provide recommendations on change. And so when that report comes out, please read it. You can read just the executive summary if, again, you don't have a lot of time. You can also watch the hearings thrice streaming them. That's what I usually do. There's not a lot of room in those hearing rooms, and so usually they have to pick and choose who comes in, in person. So I usually stream them live. You can stream them live if you just, bookmark the Sunset's homepage. There's everything you need there. You can access their reports. You can access who the Sunset Commission members are. You can click to watch the streaming of any hearings that they're having. You can really engage that way. And it'll also, again, give you sort of dates and stuff like that. If you're going to take public comment again, they'll post that. If they'll, when they issue their final report, they'll post that. Like the whole process is there for you to kind of stay on top of it.
And part of I don't want to say part of, the reason why the Sunset Commission is so important is because they make a decision of where to house our license and what happens with it, whether we have one or not. And this was what some people know, some people don't. It was a big issue this past legislative session. And the Sunset Commission, and you can read the old report, the previous report online. It's still up there if you want to make those, if you want to look at that. TCA just posted, the TCA office just posted the link. Thank you, probably Chris. Thank you, Chris. But it's important to know that they recommended that there was I want to say what would you say? It feels like a C word, but there was a collective that they put several of the mental health organizations together, like psychologists, licensed clinical social workers, LMFTs, and the LPCs under one organization, and had it, I think they were calling it the Behavioral Health Council. Oh, is that right?
Yeah, we call it BHEC. If any of you hear that term, BHEC for short, the Behavioral Health, BHEC, the Behavioral Health Executive Council. Yeah.
So TCA supports that because it was really it was a joint and collaborative effort between all of these professions, these mental health professions coming together and saying, hey, we want to support each other. We want our voice heard. We don't want to be fallen under people that also oversee plumbers. Not that there's anything wrong with plumbers, but they don't know mental health. So you can look at the previous recommendations from the Sunset Commission, and please feel free to make any comments as well. When I went online, it had like complaints, comments, and then suggestions, like how do we fix this? So, and TCA just said they posted a better link. So it must be more direct for you to make comments.
Yes,
so there you go.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the link that will take you directly to the Sunset's part of their website for us versus you having to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, very good.
TCA.
I don't know what else to say. This has been pretty incomprehensive. I'm having trouble with C words today. So I guess anything else? I can't think of anything else that I would throw in here at this point. Did anybody else have questions is what I would say.
I'm not seeing any other questions, but what I would add is one of the other big things the board kind of put on their calendar at the last meeting was, first of all, they tentatively scheduled all their meetings for the next 2 years, which they have never done before.
Wow,
which is fabulous. Like, wow. So you can plan ahead to go and engage. You get free continuing ed if you go to a complaints hearing for ethics. You get free continuing ed if you're a supervisor for going to an application and supervision meeting. Like, yes, you have to pay for the travel. Right, yeah. You know, for wherever the board is meeting at, you got to pay for your travel. But you don't have to pay to attend, and you don't have to, therefore, pay for those continuing ed units, which is really cool. So look for them to, they can't post them until it's been officially posted in the Texas Register. That's just one of those rules. But once that's all done, then you should see those dates in advance on their website. And the other thing I would want everybody to know that they also scheduled that they put on their calendar when we were there was in January, they're going to try to crank out their 4-year full rules review. That is a tongue twister for me.
Yes.
So that's important, because what you can then expect is within a few months after that, they'll post those proposed rule changes for us to then post public comment for. So look for like, that's exciting. That's big. They have to do that per statute every 4 years. Yeah. And so based off of what they discussed a few weeks ago, they're really expecting a big overhaul to come out of that. So that's big change coming, and another opportunity for us to engage and influence and be a part of that change.
And I will tell you, as somebody who, if you would have asked me 10 years ago, like, to put some public comment out there, I would have been like, I don't know what I'm talking about. This is the thing is, like, my theme for the year is counselors choosing courage. I think it's little small moments of courage. You don't have to have a PhD to have a valuable comment. You don't have to be wise words of wisdom to have valuable comment. Really, it's you're in the field. If you're an LPC and in the field, they need to know. They need to know what works. Do you like, I remember one rule that I argued against that got changed along the way was, you have to get the complete divorce decree. And I was like, that's stupid. I mean, I didn't write that stupid, but I kind of did. Yeah. And then eventually, like, that got in there, and then they took it out where it's like, oh no, you just have to have this one part. I think enough of us said, hey, this doesn't work for us to make, a copy of a 50-page divorce decree and to do this. So those public comments from the rules are really important. They need to have, because the thing is that if we're pushing back against something, they're going to reconsider that. And they do. And a lot of times they do. And they say, okay, no, not right now. That's not appropriate. So thank you for bringing that up. I had forgotten that.
Absolutely.
All right. We have been talking a while. So Katherine, thank you so much for joining me. I don't know if you've done Facebook Live before, but you did fabulous. Nope. High five.
Thank you. This is my first time. Again, I appreciate you bringing me kicking and screaming into the 21st century. And I have to give a huge shout out to my auntie, who is not a counselor, but is clearly older than me, but more hip than I am, because, like, she obviously knows all about this stuff, because Yeah, I was like, oh my God, that's my aunt.
I know we have a pretty good crowd going on here, so that's good. I am going to try to do this every Friday, just FYI for everybody. I know at the beginning, I don't know, I think it was August or September, I posted one and I said, I'm going to do this. And it just has taken me a while to like get on track. So my plan is to try to do this every Friday where I have some kind of guest to talk to that is relevant to our profession. So if you have any suggestions, you can send them to me. I'll give you my email. My email is Cyndi, CYNDI.Doyle, DOYLE @yahoo.com. That's the easiest one to do. Katherine, if somebody, I don't know, Katherine, if somebody wants to get a hold of you for some reason, is there a good way to do that?
Sure. Yeah, they can reach out to me at Katherine Bacon. It's just Katherine, Katherine, Bacon, BACON, like the food. Yeah.
Yum, yum.
At Paris Foundation. I know, right? And now they're old school calling you. At parisfoundation.org. That's PARRIS foundation.org. And
Thank
another
you.
shout out to Catherine Squared, my cohort, my fellow Catherine.
Is that Catherine
out there,
Johnson?
Catherine Johnson. We are Catherine Squared. So shout out to my deuce over there.
Michael Duvall, who's watching this. Gabby.
Hey, Michael.
Brandy, who's watching. She must have come back. She was the one who called me earlier, and she must be sitting in her office. Julie and her husband in Italy. Terry, thank you for always coming in. Catherine Moss, who watched this. Good gosh, we had a good crowd.
Another Catherine. It's good, good name.
It's the Catherines. Anyway, all right. Y'all have a great day. And
Wonderful
we will
weekend,
see
y'all.
you next week. Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it. Bye.
Now I got to figure out how to turn it off. As
I'll
hard
turn
as
it
it
off.
was to figure out how to. Oh, okay, great. Thanks.
Bye.